The Galactic Council had always looked down on Earth. For centuries, humanity had been a relatively unknown, insignificant species in the eyes of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Earth was just a small, young planet on the edge of the galaxy, struggling to survive, caught in the shadows of older, more advanced races. Despite this, humanity had managed to hold its ground, growing stronger with each passing year. But that all changed when the Galactic Council made a decision that would alter the fate of humanity forever. The Council had seen humanity's rise as a potential threat. The humans had been making waves, developing new technologies and expanding their influence across the galaxy. And it was this very growth that triggered their downfall. It wasn't a sudden attack or an act of war that led to Earth's downfall. No, the Council's actions were far more subtle, but just as devastating. They did not launch a full-scale assault. They didn't need to. Instead, they simply expelled Earth from the Council. They issued an official decree, labeling humanity as a dangerous species. Their reasoning was simple. Earth was too unpredictable, too dangerous to be part of the Council's unified vision for the galaxy. They feared what humanity might become. The decision came like a punch to the stomach for the people of Earth. The humans had no warning. One day, they were an important part of the Galactic Council, sharing knowledge and resources, working side by side with some of the oldest civilizations in the universe. The next day, they were cast aside, as if they didn't matter at all. For the first time in history, humanity faced complete isolation. The galaxy, which they had once thought of as an ally, had turned its back on them. Earth's leaders and citizens were stunned. They had been betrayed by the very beings they had trusted. The anger and resentment that followed the banishment were overwhelming. But as the days passed, something remarkable began to happen. Instead of surrendering to despair, humanity began to rally. Earth's brightest minds started to work together, pooling their knowledge and resources. They began to design weapons, ships, and technology that would make them a force to be reckoned with. The human spirit, which had been trampled on for so long, began to rise like a sleeping giant, awakening with an unrelenting thirst for revenge. But there was one thing the Galactic Council didn't understand. They thought that without their influence and support, Earth would crumble. They were wrong. The humans weren't weak. They weren't helpless. If anything, they were now more dangerous than ever. Humanity had been tested before, through wars, struggles, and survival. But this was different. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving that Earth was more than just a forgotten planet. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity would not be dismissed. They were no longer the underdogs. They were going to take their place at the top. At first, Earth's leaders kept their plans hidden from the rest of the galaxy. There were whispers of new warships, secret projects, and hidden alliances. The Council, in their arrogance, believed that Earth's banishment would leave the planet weak and vulnerable. But they didn't know what humanity was capable of. The humans had always been good at surviving. Now, they were going to show the galaxy that they could thrive. As the days passed, Earth's scientists worked day and night on secret projects. The most ambitious of these was the construction of a fleet of warships, each one more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships weren't just made for defense. They were made to strike back with unstoppable force. They would be humanity's answer to the Council's betrayal. And when the time came, Earth would make sure the galaxy knew the cost of underestimating humanity. In the shadows, away from the prying eyes of the galaxy, Earth's military began to train. Soldiers, engineers, and tacticians worked together in secrecy, preparing for the day they would rise from the ashes of betrayal. They knew the Council would try to crush them, but they also knew that humanity's greatest strength was its will to survive, to fight back, no matter the odds. As Earth prepared for the future, the rest of the galaxy carried on with its business. The Galactic Council went about their dealings, oblivious to the storm that was brewing on the once-forgotten planet. They thought they had eliminated the threat that humanity posed. They thought wrong. The Council had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, They had sealed their fate. They had set in motion a chain of events that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Earth would rise from its ashes, stronger and more determined than ever before. And when the time came, the galaxy would understand just how powerful humanity had become. The stage was set. The betrayal was complete. Now, humanity would prove that they were not the weak, insignificant species the galaxy thought them to be. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity was ready to fight. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and soon they would pay the price. The Galactic Council, basking in the belief that they had crushed the human threat, carried on with their diplomatic affairs. They thought Earth's isolation would break its spirit, that humanity would become weak and desperate. But as the Council indulged in their victories, humanity was silently preparing for something much larger than they could ever imagine. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in secret bunkers and hidden military complexes, the first steps toward revenge were being taken. The once fragile planet now began to forge a new destiny, one that would send shockwaves through the entire galaxy. Humans were not a species to be written off, not when they had everything to prove. Every scientist, every engineer, every military strategist worked tirelessly to turn their dream of power into a reality. They had already proven their resilience, but now they would show the universe just how far that resilience could take them. The secret warships were humanity's crowning achievement. They were no longer designing just ships. They were creating vessels that could rival the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. These ships were built for one purpose only: to unleash devastation. Unlike the Council's fleets, these ships were not mere tools of war. They were embodiments of human ingenuity, each one a testament to the willpower of Earth's people. But creating the warships was only the beginning. Humanity knew that the Council, in all its arrogance, would never suspect them. The galaxy's most advanced fleets had been designed with speed and power in mind, but Earth's ships were something different. They were designed to be lethal, built for destruction, and equipped with technology that no other species had even begun to imagine. The humans worked with determination and focus, driven by a single thought: vengeance. For decades, the galaxy had mocked them, ignored them, and now humanity would show them the true power of the human spirit. They were not weak. They were not helpless. They had always survived against impossible odds, and now they were preparing to strike back. As the days turned into months, Earth's military strength grew. More ships were built, and the human fleet slowly began to take shape. They were ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before, equipped with weapons so powerful they could obliterate entire planets. These ships were not built for defense. They were made to bring the war directly to the galaxy's doorstep. Earth would not just be a forgotten species anymore. Earth was preparing to take control. But even with all their power, Earth still had one problem: secrecy. The galaxy could never know what was coming. The Council had spies in every corner of the galaxy, and Earth could not risk being discovered before they were ready. So every ship, every weapon, and every tactic was kept under wraps, hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy. However, as the final touches were put on the fleet, a whisper began to spread. Among the few that knew about Earth's growing power, a dark excitement began to bubble up. The thought of revenge, of showing the galaxy that humanity was no longer weak, became a force unto itself. The Council had thought they had rid themselves of Earth's influence, but the humans knew that a galaxy that underestimated them would soon feel the consequences. The first ship, the flagship of Earth's new fleet, was ready. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, a gargantuan dreadnought that glowed with an ominous energy. This was Earth's answer to the Galactic Council's betrayal. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. Humanity would not be ignored, not anymore. The dreadnought was a symbol of what was to come, a symbol of Earth's growing strength. But the ship was not alone. As it rose from Earth's hidden launch platforms, it was joined by a fleet of other ships, each one as deadly as the last. The fleet was a show of force, a warning to the rest of the galaxy that Earth had returned. The Council's ships had been built for speed, for diplomacy, for power. But Earth's fleet was built for one thing: destruction. These ships were not just designed to defend. They were built to conquer. With their fleet ready, Earth's leaders began to plan the next steps. They knew the galaxy would retaliate. They knew the Council would not simply sit by while humanity flexed its newfound strength. But Earth's leaders were ready. They had no intention of negotiating, no intention of compromising. The galaxy had betrayed them, and now it would face the consequences. The Galactic Council had thought that Earth's time had passed, that humanity's weakness would lead to its downfall. But what they failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength was its capacity for survival. Earth had been knocked down, but instead of staying down, humanity had risen again, stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than ever before. The galaxy had made a grave mistake, and they would soon learn just how costly that mistake would be. With the fleet now in place, Earth's leaders gave the order. It was time to strike. The first attack would be swift and devastating, designed to send a message to the rest of the galaxy. The battle was coming, and Earth was ready to show the universe that they would never again be underestimated. The first strike was swift and unexpected. The flagship, Earth's towering dreadnought, silently slipped into the fringes of Galactic Council space, undetected and unnoticed. It was a testament to humanity's growing ability to hide in plain sight. This wasn't the same Earth that had been ignored and exiled. This was a new, far more dangerous version, one that had learned to operate in the shadows, moving like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The fleet had been designed with precision. Each ship was a silent weapon, cloaked in advanced technology that made them nearly invisible to the highly advanced scanning systems of the Galactic Council. It wasn't just the technology that made them dangerous. It was the minds that had created them. Humanity's ingenuity had always been its greatest weapon, and now it was sharper than ever. The dreadnoughts were armed with the most destructive weaponry in the galaxy, powerful enough to decimate entire fleets in a single strike. But it was more than just firepower. The humans had perfected the art of ambush, moving with a deadly efficiency that few could ever hope to match. The first battle came without warning. The Council's outer defense stations, designed to keep any threats at bay, were suddenly caught in a devastating surprise. They had been lulled into a false sense of security, believing that Earth was no longer a threat. But the truth was much darker. The Earth fleet hit the Council's defenses with a speed and power that left them scrambling for a response. The first few waves of strikes were too fast, too powerful for the Council to process. Their systems struggled to keep up with the sheer force of the human assault. Every ship in the Earth fleet was a weapon of unparalleled power, but they were also a symbol of human perseverance. These were not ships designed for diplomacy or defense. They were built to destroy, to erase the Council's arrogance from the stars. The dreadnoughts tore through the defenses like a hammer shattering glass. A single volley of energy from one of Earth's dreadnoughts obliterated entire fleets of the Galactic Council, leaving nothing but a fiery trail in the void. The Council's commanders were thrown into chaos. For years, they had been comfortable in their belief that Earth's time had passed. They had ignored humanity, banished them from the galactic stage, assuming that the planet would be forgotten. But now, that mistake was staring them in the face. The sudden, overwhelming force of Earth's ships was a nightmare they hadn't prepared for. The battle raged on, but the Galactic Council's response was sluggish. They were used to being in control, used to leading the charge, but now they were on the back foot, trying to react to a threat they hadn't even seen coming. Earth's fleet continued its assault, each strike calculated and precise. The dreadnoughts glided through space like a silent storm, wiping out the Council's forces with terrifying efficiency. But as the battle escalated, Earth's fleet was not without its own struggles. Despite their overwhelming strength, the humans were not invincible. The Galactic Council's military might, though slow to respond, was still formidable. Soon, The humans would face more than just scattered resistance. They would face the full force of the Council's remaining fleets. Yet even as the odds seemed to turn against them, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. They were not fighting for victory alone. They were fighting for justice, for their very survival, and for the future of their world. Back on Earth, the leadership knew the war had only just begun. The Council would retaliate, but they would do so without knowing the full extent of humanity's power. The ships in space were only a small part of the grand plan. On Earth, engineers and military strategists continued to perfect new weapons, new tactics. The fleet was still growing, still evolving. This was just the beginning. Humanity had learned from its exile, learned from its mistakes, and now they were prepared to take on the entire galaxy if need be. The galaxy, however, still didn't know what it was up against. The Council's arrogance had blinded them to the threat humanity posed. They had thought Earth was a weak, isolated species, easy to conquer and forget. But humanity had not only survived their exile, they had thrived. They had transformed into a force the galaxy had never anticipated, and now the rest of the galaxy would learn the hard way that Earth was not to be underestimated. The battle had only just begun, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. As the remnants of the Galactic Council's outer fleets began to retreat, the once vibrant space lanes now lay silent and scarred. The dreadnoughts of Earth had ravaged everything in their path, leaving the galaxy in shock. What had been thought of as a minor, forgotten species was now an unstoppable force, their ships cutting through the void like a blade through paper. Back on Earth, the leadership of the newly formed Terran Empire stood united, but there was no joy in their victory. The cost of war had already begun to take its toll. Thousands of lives had been lost in the opening waves of battle. Every victory, while sweet, came with a bitter aftertaste. Their resolve had been tested, but humanity was not one to back down, not now and not ever. General Kale, the leader of Earth's most formidable fleet, stood before the holographic projection of the galaxy, studying the remnants of the Galactic Council's ships scattered across the stars. His eyes were cold, focused. The first victory had been theirs, but that did not mean the war was over. The Council was not about to let them get away with such an insult. Kale knew it. The rest of the leadership knew it. They were in for much more than just a series of skirmishes. "We've struck fear into them," Kale muttered under his breath. His hands rested firmly on the map of the galaxy, tracing the lines of the next phase. But fear can only carry us so far. It's time to finish this. The humans had already won the first round, but the Galactic Council was far from defeated. They were regrouping, calling upon their most powerful assets from across the stars. Their fleets, shattered and broken, would soon be bolstered by reinforcements that Earth could not yet predict. But the humans weren't idle. Earth had the advantage of surprise, and they intended to use it. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Galactic Council's military headquarters, the mood was one of panic. The generals and admirals sat around a massive table, their faces grim. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Council's fleets had been decimated, their pride shattered. Worse still, they could not understand how humans had so quickly risen to power. "They're too strong," one of the higher-ranking officers said, his voice strained. "Our forces were too scattered, and their new warships, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered." Admiral Kree, a veteran officer of the Galactic Council, slammed his fist onto the table. "Do not make the mistake of thinking that the Terran Empire is unstoppable," he growled. "We may have underestimated them, but we have the resources to crush them." But deep down, even Admiral Kree could feel the unease. The humans had become more than just a threat. They were now the greatest military power the galaxy had ever seen. The Council had made a mistake, and it would cost them dearly. "Prepare our fleet for full mobilization," Admiral Kree ordered, his voice now cold and determined. "We will not allow Earth to continue this madness. We will reclaim our honor, but we must strike hard and fast before they can organize further." And so the countdown began. While the Terran Empire had the upper hand, the Galactic Council was not one to fold easily. It was only a matter of time before their fleets rallied together, and Earth would face a new kind of war, one they were not yet prepared for. But humanity had its own advantage, their unpredictability. They had come from nothing, had been cast aside, and left to wither in the galaxy's shadow. Now, they were the galaxy's most terrifying force, and they had a point to prove. General Kale turned back to the hologram, studying the Council's movements. His mind was already calculating their next steps, always 2 moves ahead. "Let them come," Kale muttered. "We've waited long enough." The battle would soon escalate beyond anything either side had imagined. Earth's dreadnoughts were poised for another strike, but this time, the stakes would be much higher. The Galactic Council was assembling its most elite fleets. They had one goal now, to eradicate the Terran threat. But Earth's resolve was stronger than ever, and their fleet was only growing. Soon, it would become clear to the galaxy that Earth was no longer a forgotten species. It was a power to be reckoned with. No longer would humanity hide in the shadows. No longer would they be pushed aside. They would take their place among the stars, and they would not be so easily dethroned. The Council was right about one thing: Earth's rise could not be stopped. The galaxy was about to witness a war like no other, a war that would leave scars across the stars and force every power in the galaxy to reconsider the place of humanity in the cosmos. The tide had turned, and now it was time to show the galaxy what Earth was truly capable of. The peace that had seemed almost tangible for a moment was shattered. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council's fleets were preparing for war. They had retreated, regrouped, and now they were coming back stronger than ever. The Council's vast armadas were converging on Earth, drawn by the burning need to crush the rising human empire. The Terran warships had already proven themselves, but the Council's retaliatory fleets were a different kind of threat, one that would not be easily defeated. Back on Earth, General Kale stood in the command center, his expression hardening as he reviewed the incoming reports. His fleet had won the first round, but now they were facing a challenge unlike anything they had seen before. The Council had not only repaired their broken fleets, but had also unleashed new, more powerful warships, ships built specifically to counter the deadly capabilities of Earth's dreadnoughts. "Their fleets are assembling," Kale muttered under his breath, his eyes locked on the holographic display of the galaxy. "They've learned from their mistakes. We'll need to be smarter, faster. This isn't just a battle of firepower anymore." His officers gathered around him, listening intently as he issued orders. Humanity had taken the first strike, but now they had to prepare for a battle that could decide the fate of the Terran Empire. The stakes were higher than ever. If they lost this next encounter, Earth would be forced into hiding once again. "We must build on the advantage we have," Kale continued, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "Our dreadnoughts were a shock to them, but now we must surprise them again. We've got to outmaneuver them. Our strength lies not only in firepower, but in strategy. We can't face them head-on. We need to fight smart." Kale's eyes flickered with determination. Earth's fleets were powerful, but so were the Council's new ships. The Galactic Council wasn't going to let their humiliation slide easily. They would retaliate with everything they had. Earth had to find a way to stay ahead, find a way to turn the tables once again. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council's leaders were equally determined. Their pride had been wounded, and they were hell-bent on avenging their losses. Admiral Kree, now in command of the largest fleet ever assembled by the Council, stood in his war room, staring at the galaxy map. "We cannot afford another failure," Admiral Kree barked. His words were harsh, but there was a hint of desperation in his voice. "The humans have humiliated us, and they're growing stronger every day. We will strike them down before they can do any more damage." Kree's fleet, now bolstered with the latest technology and reinforced by elite forces from across the galaxy, was poised for war. But this was not a simple act of retaliation. This was a mission to wipe humanity from the stars. The humans were a threat, and the Council had to eliminate that threat before it grew beyond their control. The first wave of ships launched from the Council's strongholds, massive cruisers and warships, filled with the best warriors the galaxy had to offer. They moved in perfect formation, each ship a symbol of the Council's power and resolve. Their goal was clear: destroy Earth's fleets and end humanity's rise once and for all. But Earth's fleets weren't sitting idle. General Kale had anticipated this moment. He had already begun implementing his strategy, knowing full well that the Council would strike back with all their might. He was ready. His officers were ready. The Terran Empire would not go down without a fight. The first skirmishes occurred in the outer edges of Earth's territories, where the two forces collided in a spectacle of flashing lights and roaring explosions. The Terran dreadnoughts, massive and imposing, unleashed their firepower, tearing into the Council's ships with terrifying precision. The humans had learned how to fight on their terms, using stealth and surprise to their advantage. But the Council was not easily intimidated. Admiral Kree's forces responded swiftly, their newly equipped warships dodging and retaliating with even greater intensity. Their tactics were refined, and their countermeasures had been designed specifically to deal with Earth's dreadnoughts. The battle was intense, with neither side giving an inch. "We must push them back," Admiral Kree said, his voice icy with resolve. "Let them know that their rise was a fluke. We are the true power in this galaxy." However, as the battle raged on, something unexpected happened. Earth's fleets didn't break. They didn't falter. Instead, they adapted, learning and reacting to the Council's moves. Humanity had taken the first blow, but now they were fighting back harder than ever. Back on Earth, General Kale smiled grimly as he watched the battle unfold. The Council's fleets were bigger and more powerful, but they lacked something that humanity had in abundance: resolve. The humans fought not for survival, but for a future among the stars. "They underestimated us," Kale said, his voice cold but full of pride. "And now, they'll learn why that was their biggest mistake." As the battle in space continued, the fate of the galaxy seemed uncertain. The Terran Empire had won the first round, but this war was far from over. The stakes were higher now, and both sides had proven that they were capable of unimaginable destruction. Only one would emerge victorious, and the galaxy was about to witness a fight that would leave a lasting mark on the stars. The vast space around Earth became a war zone, filled with the thunderous clash of warships, each side throwing everything they had at the other. The battle had reached a crucial point. The Galactic Council had come back with a vengeance, their new fleets imposing and ruthless. They had hoped to crush humanity's rise before it could take root, but they had underestimated the sheer will of Earth's forces. General Kale paced in the command center, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The battle wasn't going as planned. The Council had learned from their past mistakes, and their new strategies were proving to be effective. The once confident Terran fleets were now taking heavy hits, their dreadnoughts facing a level of resistance they had never expected. "They're adapting faster than we thought," Kale muttered, running a hand through his hair. The tactics that had worked before no longer had the same impact. The Council's ships were equipped with new countermeasures designed specifically to deal with Earth's superior firepower. It was a constant struggle to stay one step ahead. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council's fleets were tightening their grip. Admiral Kree, commanding the largest of the Council's armadas, was pushing relentlessly forward. He had seen the rise of humanity as a threat that could destabilize the entire galaxy. His fleet, now augmented with advanced technology and elite troops, was relentless. His goal was simple: destroy Earth's fleets and prevent any future challenges to the Council's dominance. "We need to break their momentum," Kale said, his voice firm as he issued orders to his officers. His command staff had been working tirelessly to figure out how to reverse the tide of battle. Despite the odds, he remained confident. The fight for survival had never been easy, but humanity had always found a way to persevere. On the battlefield, Earth's warships were under heavy fire. Explosions rocked the dreadnoughts as Council ships launched wave after wave of devastating attacks. The odds seemed stacked against the Terran fleet, but Cal had a plan. A secret weapon that had been kept under wraps until this very moment. As the battle raged, a fleet of ships, previously hidden in deep space, emerged from the darkness. These ships were different from the usual dreadnoughts humanity had relied on. Smaller, faster, and equipped with cutting-edge technology, they were designed for a singular purpose: to strike swiftly and without warning. "Activate the secondary fleet," Cale commanded, his voice steady and filled with determination. The new fleet's appearance on the battlefield sent shockwaves through both sides. The smaller ships, once thought insignificant, now wreaked havoc on the Council's formations. Their speed and agility allowed them to outmaneuver the larger warships, delivering precise strikes that tore through the Council's defenses. Admiral Kree's eyes widened as he watched the unexpected fleet cut through his armada. It was the last thing he had anticipated, and it threw his forces into disarray. His ships, previously confident in their superiority, were now struggling to keep up with the relentless pace of humanity's counterattack. "What are these ships?" Kree demanded, his voice laced with fury and disbelief. The Galactic Council's advanced ships were strong, but these new human vessels seemed to defy all logic. The tide of battle was shifting, and for the first time since the war began, the Council's forces were on the back foot. Cale watched the battle unfold from Earth's command center, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. His gamble had paid off. Humanity's resilience had always been their greatest strength. Where others would have faltered, they had risen to the challenge. Now, the Council was feeling the heat. Despite the Council's overwhelming numbers, the human fleet had managed to exploit their weaknesses, and for the first time in this war, it was the Terran Empire that held the upper hand. The smaller, faster ships had given humanity the advantage they needed. The Council's forces were beginning to retreat, their morale shattered by the unexpected turn of events. But Cale knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not admit defeat so easily. They would regroup, and they would strike again. The war was far from over, and the outcome was still uncertain. But humanity had shown that it was not to be underestimated. As Admiral Kree ordered his ships to pull back, Cal's voice echoed through the command center. "Don't let them regroup. We push them now, while they're on the run." Earth's fleet pressed the attack, using their newfound momentum to press deeper into enemy territory. The Council, caught off guard by the sudden shift in power, had no choice but to retreat. But even in their retreat, they were dangerous. The battle was far from won. For the first time in the war, the Galactic Council was reeling, forced to consider the possibility that their dominion over the galaxy was not as secure as they had once believed. The humans had shown them what it meant to fight for survival, and for the future. The galaxy, once so certain of its unchallenged supremacy, was now uncertain. Earth had proven that it was not just a survivor, it was a force to be reckoned with. The war had not yet ended, but the tide had undeniably turned in humanity's favor. The sound of war echoed across the stars. The battle between Earth's forces and the Galactic Council had been fierce, with each side losing ships, soldiers, and resources. But in the quiet of the command center, General Cale stood still, gazing at the galaxy map projected before him. The map had changed. Humanity had pushed the Council back, but the Council's retaliation was inevitable. "We need to finish this now," Cale muttered, his voice thick with determination. The last few months had been nothing but chaos, but Earth had fought back with everything they had. Now, it was clear that this final showdown would determine the fate of the galaxy. Cale turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet for one last strike. We have them on the ropes, but if we don't act now, they'll regroup and come at us with everything they've got. We need to end this once and for all." The officers nodded, their faces grim. They knew this was it, the final push. There would be no turning back. Earth's fleet had taken a heavy toll in this war, but it was ready. The secret ships, the reinforcements, the innovations, everything had led up to this moment. The once powerful Galactic Council was now scattered, its armadas broken and retreating, but they were still a formidable force. They wouldn't give up without a fight. The galaxy had always been theirs to command, and they weren't going to lose that power so easily. They'd come up with a new plan, a last-ditch effort to reclaim their control. Admiral Kree, furious but determined, stared at the hologram of Earth's fleet. He knew what was coming. The humans were making their move, and this time he wouldn't let them surprise him again. He ordered his forces to retreat to the last remaining stronghold of the Galactic Council, a distant star system deep in the heart of enemy territory. This final location would be their last bastion. They would fight here, or they would fall. Kel's fleet, moving with precision, followed closely behind. The space between them and the Council's remaining forces narrowed, and tensions were high. This battle would decide it all, the future of Earth and the entire galaxy. Prepared to engage, Kel commanded, watching as his fleet entered the heart of the Council's final stronghold. A sense of urgency filled the air. The time for negotiation, the time for retreat, was over. The war was now a battle of pure will. Whoever wanted to survive had to fight with everything they had. The Terran dreadnoughts and advanced ships surged forward, their weapons primed. The final battle was unlike any they had fought before. The Galactic Council's ships, equipped with their last line of defense, were ready for the fight of their lives. But it was no longer about technology. It was about who had the strength, the determination, to claim victory. The first shots were fired, followed by a roar of explosions and flashes of light. The space around them became a battleground, filled with the fury of war. Earth's ships, though damaged, held firm. Their superior tactics, honed through years of hardship and survival, turned the tide once more. Humanity's fleet, though smaller, moved like a single entity, attacking with precision and efficiency. But the Council had one final trick up their sleeve, a weapon they had been hiding until now. Kel's heart raced as the weapon activated. The sheer power of it was unlike anything he had ever seen. For a moment, it seemed as though the Council might pull off a victory. Their weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of obliterating entire fleets, locked onto Earth's dreadnoughts. "They're going to use it," one of the officers shouted. Kel's mind raced, his instincts kicking in. Evade. Full shields up. All ships, get to cover. The energy cannon fired, and a pulse of energy shot across space. Earth's ships scattered, narrowly avoiding the blast. It was a near miss, but the impact was still devastating. Several smaller ships were lost, but the dreadnoughts remained intact. Humanity had survived, yet again. With the Council's weapon expended, they were left vulnerable. The Terran fleet, battered but relentless, pushed forward, their firepower overwhelming the Council's remaining ships. The war was almost over. As the last of the Council's ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, Kel stood at the center of the command room, watching the stars fade into peace. The war was over. The Galactic Council had been defeated. A deep silence filled the command center as the realization set in. Humanity had done the impossible. Against all odds, Earth had not only survived but had triumphed. The galaxy, once divided and under the oppressive rule of the Galactic Council, would now face a new era. Earth had earned its place at the center. "Victory," Kel said quietly, his voice filled with awe. The price had been high, but humanity had won. They had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated, that they would never back down. They had fought for their survival, and they had prevailed. But Kel knew that the fight for Earth's future was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and not all species would be content with Earth's rise. But for now, humanity had made its mark on the stars, and the stars would never forget.